Roll call 219 here. So, you know, I look back on some things and I think that I took it for granted. And I've been trying to do right through all of my times. So, today, you know, it's going to be Thanksgiving. Okay, folks? And you know, tomorrow's Thanksgiving. So, I'm filming this the day before. Over the vast majority of years I've been hunting, I've always gotten lucky around this time of the year. You just got to be there, right place, right time. A lot of things have to kind of fall into place. And so, yesterday I went and picked up my son, and he hasn't shot a deer yet. And I've always tried to get him out there. If you guys don't know shark bait, uh, he's he's a phenomenal person. Not only as a son, but a person. And he's been doing a lot of things this past summer up to this point that have got him really interested in some stuff. But he's always been interested in the outdoors. And so last night, I told him we got to be in a tree stand pretty early. There's a lot of things that are moving. The weather, I don't. This is the craziest weather. One day we had, I don't know, 4 or 5, maybe even 6 inches of snow. Now it's all melted. 7-degree days one day, 17 degrees one day I left for work. I mean, it's just been off and on, just crazy weather. So that changes up these deer's pattern. So I told him we got to be out there. I explained to him what needed to be done. Just please follow my direction. Not going to set you up for failure. So just, pay attention to what you're doing out there with me. So we get to the tree stand about, I don't know, 6:15ish, if that. And we're walking through this spot, and I kind of held him up there, and I was like, look, I'm like, I forgot my gun in the center console. I'm like, we should be all right. The coyotes shouldn't be out here this early, but you never know. They show up when they show up. I said, but I got you. Don't worry about it. I got you. And so we get to the spot, about halfway to the tree stand, and I hear some messing around in the woods. So, I stopped him, and I'm like, listen. And I don't think he can hear it. And for some reason, my hearing's better than my sight. So I was like, well, we gotta get to the tree stand. So we get to the part where we come to the tree stand, and I'm like, oh man, look out in the field. I said, look at, there's a deer running. I'm like, we gotta get up in here. We gotta get up in here. We gotta be kosher. Everything's gotta sit in right. I said, I'm gonna place you on the back side of the tree stand here. And I told him, look down. I said, they're traveling this path. So you're gonna see them either way they come. Whether they're coming or they're going. One of the ways you're gonna see deer. I'm like, I'm gonna climb up in the tree stand, and there's a ridge that goes across there. And if you're on the ground, you're not gonna see what's coming over that ridge until it's upon you. So I climbed up the deer stand. I looked over there. He's getting comfortable in his spot. Thumbs up. All right, everything's ready to go. And so pulling up my bow, and I get in there. I set my arrow, and then like 3 minutes, I see these deer. They come ripping into the woods, man, from the far corner of the other set of woods, and they're chasing each other, and they're going around and around in circles. Like, I've seen this before, and I kind of diagnose it as yearlings. There's a bunch of yearlings. But, I mean, chasing's going on right now because we're either, at this point, we're at the peak rut and we're coming down to, the post rut at this point where, mating season for deers. And I was like, man, we're really close here. And so I'm watching these deer move, and I kind of look behind the tree stand. I give them some hand signals too, moving, in the direction. I said, look that direction. They're going to be right on you. I mean, I can watch them. But again, in my tree stand, it's positioned into a way where it's kind of tilted towards another portion of the field. So it's really hard looking behind me. Like, I can look pretty good back behind me where I've set him. So looking the other direction, that sucks. Let's just be frank with this. It stinks, man. It's a shooting position. It'd be really hard to get a shot on a deer. But he's in the position where he can shoot either direction, and there's no tree branches, limbs are over my head because I'm in the tree stand and whatnot. So, I'm watching these deer, and they're running in circles, and I'm like, oh man, could be chasing. So the deer come ripping out of this other section of the woods, and they come, I would say about 10, 15 feet from old shark bait. And I'm looking back behind this tree, and I'm like, oh man. So now I got my crossbow up on these two yearlings, because basically they almost ran them over. Almost ran my kid over. Dangerous out here. We're talking about dangerous. Sitting on the ground. A lot of people like to do it, especially people that use recurve, all that jazz. But I'm like, oh man, I'm going to shoot this deer. Well, they came to a grinding halt, and you can kind of see their demeanor change. So I heard some crunching coming over that ridge, and I'm just like, please don't be no big buck. I've already spent my buck tag. He this is his first time. I'm like, it's going to be great for him if he gets an opportunity. But the deer comes up over the ridge, and I'm trying to look through these branches because she's in a part where, that property's not cured for shooting lanes, only the property in front of me. So I watch this deer come off there, and all of a sudden I really noticed the demeanor of these other two deer just dropped. Like, all the running around, the chasing each other, that stopped, and it stopped immediately. So I'm like, oh man, that's either they figured out he's on the ground, they figured out I'm in the tree stand, or these deer are just too young to understand danger. So they walk across, and they come up to the other big deer that had come over that ridge, and I'm like, well, that's got to be a nanny doe. It's got to be. I mean, usually if these yearlings are doing this and they're walking up to another deer, definitely ain't going to be a buck. They're going to be running away from the bucks. You know what I'm saying? Playing coy with them. And having the chasing procedures, continue. And so at that point, I knew it was a nanny doe. I knew it was a nanny doe. So just to make sure, I kind of bob my head down just to make sure there's no antlers on here. It's not a button buck. It's not a spike or a 4-point or a 5-point. And I looked, and I didn't see no antlers. So I was like, all right, cool. So, kind of look back on him, and then I kind of grab my crossbow. Well, she's starting to figure out what's going on here. Then she starts stomping, and she's scraping, she's stomping, and then she lets out one big gas. And from there, I knew it was a doe. I don't know how familiar you are with hunting. Female deers sometimes, to a certain degree, make different sounds than the male deers. They all blow. Okay, they all blow. They all let out that big gas of air out of their nose. So she does that, and I know it's her. And so she kind of stomps. She stomps in a circle, and the other smaller deer are all around her. So there's no shot. I don't want to shoot these smaller deer when they're in front of her and back of her, because 9 times out of 10, with a good shot, the arrow is going to penetrate. It's going to go through, and it's going to come out the other side. If these guys are on either side of there, it's going to be a disaster. I only got so many tags here. So she shifts to the right, and she starts moving. And I sit in a tree stand, and she walks into a shooting lane, and she looks back. When she looked back, I pulled the trigger on the crossbow. The safety was off. It's always a plus, folks. The bolt comes off. You hear the whack, and they take off. And I'm watching them, and they kind of go up, and they're coming down. And finally, she must have fell, because then all I seen was brief spots of the yearlings like patrolling this area. So I look back, and he's got his thumbs up. I got my thumbs up, and he's like, doing this like he heard the smack. I'm like, yeah, and I go down. I got her, and he's happy. I'm happy. And I'm like, just stay there real quick. I'm going to stay in the tree stand because these yearlings are still there. Don't want to spook them. I just want them to go off, and leave their mom. I just go on off. I mean, these deer are grown. They're grown up. I mean, there's no spots on them. They're just young, about a year old deer. So, which is really odd, but it is what it is in time. So they go off, and 10-15 minutes go. I call Cindy. We've only been in the tree stand at this point for 20 minutes. This is how long it took. As soon as I got the bow up there, we had all that action. So it was like 20 minutes. So I let everything die down there. Finally, I lower my crossbow down. And shout out to Sean the researcher for letting me borrow that crossbow this year. What a game changer that was. Game changer. If you didn't know, in my spots, I can't shoot a firearm in either one of them. The landowner where I shot these deer at this year, he quite didn't care, but I don't want to make a fuss for his neighbors. I don't need that kind of attraction or people understanding that there's big deer back here. I'd rather just do it quietly, collect my deer and go. So we get down the tree stand, and I asked him, I said, Sharkbait, why didn't you shoot that little one? I'm like, you should have shot that. I was going to shoot that little one if she came a little bit further, but she cut off to the different little ridge or hillside. And he's like, yeah, I just kind of froze there. I'm like, yeah, I mean, it happens, man. I mean, they call it for a reason, deer in the headlights, The deer is within feet of you and running around at full sprints. These deer that were next to there, they're inexperienced in life. They're basically teenagers type of deal. They don't understand the threats of danger, the threats of humans. They're not too keen. I've talked about this in earlier videos, and even some of the later videos that I've made, where I said, some deer use all three senses, which is their sight, their hearing, and their nose. These older deer, like that buck, there's a little basket 8 that I tried to shoot, and he figured it out real quick. He wasn't dumb. And then he kind of peeled off, and I missed that opportunity. But especially some of the really mature deer, all they need is like 1 or 2 senses, especially the big bucks. They have big racks for a reason. All they need is to smell you, or all they need to do is hear you, or all they need to do is see you. And it's game over. I mean, if you're giving mature deer those 3 things to work on, it's going to be really hard to shoot these deer. It just is. Again, I'm not shooting deer that are being led to feeders or they're in a fenced-in area. These deer, they're coming and they're going. Wherever they're going, and I just know the spots that some of these guys are coming through. The big guy, never seen him again, except for the first encounter, the first time I went out there, and then I shot that other 10-point. That's a deer. I even went through all my camera pictures, and I do not have that deer on any of my cameras pictures. And I have pictures all the way from the beginning of prepping that spot for the season, and still have never seen him on those cameras. So that should tell you that there's tons of deer coming through the spot, and it's different deer at different times. Sometimes there's a doe group that that's there, or there's certain spike bucks and button bucks and things like that are in that area that constantly come back there because there's sources, there's cover, there's food. Across the way there's water, there's a huge water source. So they're going over there and they're getting all these things because they know it's there. So, watching him react to this stuff was pretty cool. I mean, I got kind of concerned there because these deer were running at full speed. There's no stopping as you as they hit you, in that kind of capacity. So that was a little bit of alarming issue. So I text Cindy, told her come to the spot and come get her. She's like, "You're kidding me!" I'm doing laundry. I'm like, lucky you're right down the road. And she comes, she picks us up, and we go and we talk about the situations and stuff. Our adrenaline is pumping. Everything's going good. And then I talked to the landowner, trying to set a basis for next year. At this point, I'm tagged out. I'll tell you that right now. This is the first time I've tagged out, which is, it's a feeling that, I've never had before. I've shot some deer this year, like, one or two deer one year, one year, or had tags too. This is the first time I shot and filled all my tags, and then I shot quality deer. Like, these are really quality deer that I'm shooting. So that's always a good feeling. That's really good. So City gets kind of gung-ho in there, and we start walking the trail, and we're trying to look for the bolt, and we can't find it. I'm like, it's got a lighted knock on it. I'm like, I shot her here, and she's over. I know where she's at. She's over there, and she's down. I know she's down because those other two deer walked off. I watched them walk off, and she's got to be in that spot because those deer were younger. They're hanging around. I'm like, they'll catch on to another doe group, but I'm like, I know the area she is. And so we kind of looked, and all of a sudden, there's no blood. And I'm like, man, did I hit her back like I did that buck? Or did I miss? Or, I'm not seeing any sign. Finally, Sharkbait walks a little bit farther, and boom, there's some blood. He's like, oh, there's some blood. And he looks further down, and then he's like, well, there's a huge, huge blood trail. So we tracked her, and we came upon her. And unfortunately, she hadn't digressed at that point, into the afterlife. So we kind of sat there and, just waited for the time to come. Drug her out of there, man. This one ran about 200 yards, which is it's better than 6 like the buck did. And then I had to tail him halfway across the neighborhoods to find him. But we pulled her out of there, stuck her on the back of the truck, and it's a done deal. I'll throw some pictures in here. It's a monumental experiment on what I've done this year to get to this point, because I've experimented with a lot of techniques. I've taken and applied other people's strategies, or what I think would work in this area. Some worked, some didn't. It's the luck of the draw. The weather hasn't been great. It hasn't been awesome. Usually this time of the year it's really cold, and it hasn't been that off and on. Again, it's 80 degrees one week and 36 the next, or you got 17 degrees just like we had a couple of days ago. So the temperatures are all over the place. But this is a huge learning experience, and one of the biggest things that I've gained is patience. Patience is a virtue, and not all of us have it, okay? But I've learned to develop that little bit of patience, this little bit of patience that I've had. In the beginning of the year, I passed up on deer. Some deer that, in my mindset was shoot quality deer this year. I mean, if you got to, you got to. You got to fill your freezer. I'm not here to put 100 mounts on my wall. I'm here to fill my freezer. That's what it is. If some of these deer go by the wayside, they go by the wayside. I've looked on social media for the past 2 weeks, and there's been a ton of deer that's been taken. You name it, from giants that will live in infamy to the button bucks and spikes, to the yearlings, to big does. I mean, I've seen all kinds of quality of deer been shot this year, quite a bit. The processing stations are all filled up. People aren't taking deer. People aren't even taking mounts at this point. That's how much deer were shot this year. And usually that's how it is right now because it's gun season. The firearm season is a game changer. You can reach out further. That you don't have to track deer as much. It's a done deal. It's a done deal. I've shot deer with guns, and they've dropped on the spot. It's just like that. With bow season, you gotta be like super duper accurate, is what I've learned, and I've learned that over the years of hunting. I've shot a deer before that I thought was gonna go down, didn't go down. Tracked it for 3 days, never found it, and it showed up next spring. It's just one of those things that happen. I've seen a lot of people this year not recover deer, and they just, they waited the time amount. Some waited a day or two to go recover their deer, never found it. I watched something on, I think it was TikTok earlier. A guy had shot about 150 spread and had to let it lay because it wasn't a great shot, and the coyotes got to it and they totally destroyed that deer. That was pretty gut wrenching for him. That was the biggest deer he's ever shot in his life. I mean, I've seen it all. I've heard the stories of all, whether it's from folks from the internet or folks this year that have come to the gun counter about shooting some pretty big deer. I heard about it when I shot my buck. And the gentleman, bless his soul, came over there and helped me load my buck in there and showed me one of the deers that were taken in the area I hunt. And it was massive. It was a big deer. So, I mean, I'm grateful for this. I'm glad I had this chance to experience with my son. Everything is fine with him. It got dicey there for a hot minute, but I think we would have been okay regardless. But to date, this is one of the biggest does I've ever shot. To end the season with this is the icing on the cake. I mean, some people don't like to shoot does this far into the year, but this deer, it had already given birth this year, and it must have been in the spring and summer times. And had these deer still around her, or at the end of the summer and still had them, or kind of creeping into that fallish style. Because the other two deer that were with her, they weren't huge. But again, they didn't have any spots. They had a nice winter coat on them. They were healthy. They were healthy deer. They were running around chasing each other. You can't get any more healthier than that. So you could see that this doe that I shot, she's done this before. She almost called the game. She almost called the game today, but I got it done. I wish he would have got one, but I mean, what can you do? I had the opportunity, and I knew this was a quality deer just by looking, and I took the opportunity, and I put a decent shot on her. It wasn't the greatest shot. But I still got it done. I shot her a little bit further than I've shot any of the other deer this year. I shot the buck at 10 yards. I shot the other deer at, I don't know, maybe 15 at the most. So it was really compact into the area where I shot these deer. This was the longest shot that I'd taken this year. And it wasn't, to some people's perspective, it wasn't that long. But for me, it was long. And it was there. It took her a minute to expire, but she did, and drug her out of there. She's waiting to get done up. I'm going to do this over the holiday break. That's why we didn't have a show. I'm grateful. I'm thankful for my friends. I'm thankful for my son coming out today to put a huge cap off of a season that the first part of it was pretty dreadful, guys. I'm not going to tell you. I, kind of laid awake at bed sometimes. The deer tags have gone up in price. The state of Indiana, the bundle tag is $91 now. That's a lot of money, not to most, but for somebody that piddles around in life, that's pretty significant, especially if you're going to be eating tags too, or you have complications with your spot, or you have weather like this. This weather's been the craziest weather. But I've told other hunters, people around me, I'm like, at this point, you're going to have to get in that tree stand around 5:30, maybe 6 o'clock, right before daybreak, or go do something else in the middle of the day and come right back to your stand the closing hours of the day. And you're probably, 9 times out of 10, you're probably going to be, successful at this point. That's what I've gathered. That's what I've looked at, the information that I've gathered off my trail cameras, deer that I've shot. The first doe I shot, I got to the spot at like 4:30, shot a deer by 5. That stuff you see on the hunting channel, right? Again, I've taken a lot of things for granted. I think a lot of people do that, take things for granted. And after you see the overwhelming response that we've seen in society today, the shortage of toilet paper, the crazy masses that went out and did that. Now you're seeing inflation. It's come down a bit. Gas prices. You see all this stuff, and I don't take any of this stuff for granted now, especially in the times that we live in, especially over just the last few, 5 or 6 years, to where we are today, which is, I would say it's a tad bit worse. When you go to the store and all you want to do is make a pot of spaghetti, but ground beef, like when we went about 2 months ago, was $23 a pound. Or for 3 pounds, it was like $23. That's a lot. A pound was like $16. I've seen people and different people that I know personally in different portions of the country pay $5 to $6 a dozen of eggs. That's a lot. And I tell people to be more self-sufficient. Hunting's not for everybody. There's a lot that has to be entailed into making things come together and fall in kind of love, and be that kind of cohesion to be successful. It hasn't been like that for quite some time, especially this first part of the year. It was tough, man. It was tough. I was doubting myself. Missed a shot this year again. So that doubt creeps in your mind, like, am I going to have food to provide for my family, or do I have to fight the craziness at the grocery stores? We just went there for a couple cases of pop, a little bit of beer, and it was a madhouse. Shelves are bare. People are freaking out. I mean, steaks, the price of steaks today was outrageous. Sometimes I'm hoping to catch a deal on steaks this time of year. No, man. Ribeye steak is like $27. One. Not like the family pack. Family pack's like $37, $38. It's like that, man. And I just look back, and I don't need that stuff right now. I got enough to run us through the winter. I have us through the spring, and probably now up until next deer season. And that's the benefits of it that I look at, that you should kind of look into. It might not be for you, or you can't get out there. But if you have family members, if you have friends that take deer and are willing to give up a little bit, you should take that offer. If it's given to you, or you should ask if they would offer it. I've split deer before, and I'll do it again in a heartbeat, because I know how challenging it is to go out there to the grocery stores and grunt and bear those prices when gas is high, the food cost is high, and then your utilities are going to be high, and all your normal bills. I say that a lot. Be more self-sufficient. Be more self-reliant. Go out there and do that stuff. Some people can't, and I understand that. But if you have people around you in your network that can do this, help them out. Tell them you'll pay half the processing fee if you can get it in there. Again, there's been a lot of deer shot here that I've seen more than the last few years, just because of food prices, just because of inflation. And this has taken a huge burden. Now all we have to do, go to the gas station, is maybe to get some carrots, some, I don't know, some soda, or a case of beer. All that stuff is to the wayside. Odds and ends, shells and cheese. We found shells and cheese today, so that's always a plus. So just all the sides. It's very rewarding, especially when you go through the first part of this season. When I go look at those videos in 2022, it was tough, man. Weather was wrong, winds wrong, everything's wrong, and then it just feels like nothing's going to go right. And then the little bit of ray of sunshine comes down, and then you start really putting data and compiling data together, listening to other people, listening to other hunters. I listen to a lot of people at the gun counter that are hunters, and I took some advice. I didn't take others' advice, and it turned out the way it is, where I'm tagged out. I shot quality deer, and then I shot one of the biggest bucks that I've shot, and then one of the biggest does that I've shot in back-to-back weeks. I mean, you got to take it where you can get it. And that's why we didn't have a show tonight, because we just got done skinning it out. Again, the temperatures are wild, man. And I can't have this meat spoil. So I even went and me and Cindy spent a little bit of money for ice and shoved a bunch of ice in the carcass, just to keep it cold. Yeah, it's going to be 33 degrees tonight. Tomorrow, we're supposed to hit this 60 degree, 50, 55, somewhere in there. In certain spots, 60. It was 60 degrees a day in certain spots. And soon as we got in the car to go back home, I told her we gotta stop and get ice. I don't trust this weather. It can be kind of chilly, but I want this deer to be cold. I want it to be cold. It's a little bit easier to divvy up too. With that coldness, but I can't let this meat spoil. So keep all this stuff into consideration. The things that I'm doing may not work for you. Okay, let's be blunt here. But some of the things that I've done, maybe give them a try. And if they don't work, go back to a different method. Talk to other people about the methods that they're using. Today, I traded text messages with Squibby, and about the things that he's doing, and some of the formalities up there in Michigan. I like to go up there in some different states now and shoot deer in different spots. But unfortunately, Michigan has a lot of funky laws, especially when it comes to gun season. Bow season's pretty cut and dry, just like it here in Indiana. But here we have different laws too. You can only use straight wall cartridges on public. You can use those bottlenecks on private. So there's a lot of different stuff that goes in there. Go to your local sporting goods store or Bass Pro or farm store and get you a little book, the hunting guide. That way you can stay in correlation with the laws of your state. Here, it's a little bit better. It's getting better, but I did see that quotas have been cut down for antlerless deer. in certain areas around my region. So I'm done. I think I'm going to be done shooting deer this year. Tagging out is great, and it's awesome. We got more than enough. We'll leave some for you guys out there, but look into some of these possibilities. We ain't getting no younger. I know that. I felt that today. I want to thank Cindy for putting up with my hunting. I want to thank my son for coming out today and having a wild experience and showing him that the outdoors are fun. Keep your head on a swivel. And especially the landowner that's property I hunt. Greatly do appreciate that. He's going to be really happy with this deer. And I want to thank, just all my friends that have come out and helped, whether it's Sean the researcher's dad or my buddy today that really came through to help me hang this deer. Man, that stuff is clutch. And again, I owe a lot of people a lot for the success that I'm displaying here. It's been a long road. It's the first time I've ever filled my tags. Some people have more tags than others per state, but here, unfortunately, we can't have some of the limits in other states. But I'm satisfied. I'm really excited. I shot quality deer this year, and I'm probably going to get a mount out of it. I'm going to mount that buck. So that's that's a trifecta. You can't ask for any more. I want to thank everybody that was patient with me. My old subscribers, that's the people that zip through. But most importantly, my supporters for this channel, whether you're in the programs that YouTube runs, which is channel memberships, the super chat people, and especially my Patreon people for sticking through. The pressure is off. I kind of felt the pressure off when I shot that buck, but now the pressure's really off. Because that doe that I shot today, she was a thumper. Trust me, drug her through the woods. And I had to stop a few times. So, again, with all that being said, I'd like to thank everybody out there for your patience. I greatly do appreciate it. Please like, comment, share, and subscribe for everybody that you watch on YouTube. Not just me. Like always, guys, we'll catch you on the next one.